charges filed in the deaths of Libby German and Abby Williams. But how police went from 5 years of searching to finally making an arrest on Friday, still shrouded in mystery. And as investigators release few details on the apprehending of 50-year-old Richard Allen. Hey there, folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now. I always keep it straight with our audience here on WFLA Now. I had a list of 14 questions that I wanted answered in this press conference, and 0 for 14 as far as the details that we got here. Actually, no. I mean, 1 out of 14, because one of the questions I had here was the charges that are being filed, and we do have murder charges being filed here against 50-year-old Richard Allen, again, apprehended and arrested on Friday, as you just heard from members of the media asking in that Q&A session, a very brief Q&A session, just down the street, really, from police in the community, where, of course, Libby and Abby called home for the 13 and 14 years of their respective lives. I know that there's a lot of frustration in the comment section, and you heard before, during, and after Richard Allen's name being mentioned here in this press conference that there was going to be just heavy amounts of apologies being put forth by law enforcement officials saying that we can't release this. This has been sealed. This is still open of an investigation. Today is not a day to celebrate. Today is not that day, according to Doug Carter, the superintendent there with ISP, and saying today is not that day, and that today's not that day for answers, which is, I would imagine, very frustrating, extremely disappointing for folks in Delphi who were there in that auditorium. They were there for the press conference to get some answers, something that they could walk out of there and say, okay, this is what our hardworking men and women of law enforcement have been doing to find the person responsible for killing a 13 and 14-year-old who went on just, a walk like any two teenagers would, any two best friends would. And I would be very curious to know right now as to those community members who have been part of the search, who were part of the search efforts, who have done the interviews, who have been talking about this for 5+ years, what they would have to say. We now have another live feed coming up here. This is, I believe, from outside of that auditorium. We'll pay attention to the live feeds, and I'm going to bring in Jennifer COFFINDAFER again here momentarily as we again break this down. But I'm going to ask our audience really quickly on YouTube Live for their. You can use hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyJennifer as we bring Jennifer back in. And Jennifer, I'm very curious to hear what you have to say in relation to this press conference, a press conference where, of course, we have very little information, not really very much information announced at all. But I want to hear from our audience here. You can use hashtag HeyJB or hashtag HeyJennifer. What did you guys think of the press conference where they did, of course, announce the arrest of Richard Allen? But that was about it, Jennifer. There wasn't too much else, even though on Friday the arrests were reported. Saturday, Sunday, really the entirety of Halloween weekend, people in Indiana, people across the country are talking about finally there being an arrest in this case. And looking forward to this big Monday press conference that, police officials had, saying, hey, join us on Monday. We will be able to finally talk about how we got to this point, or at least, or so that's maybe how we read into it. But we get to Monday, we get to 10 a.m., the press conference starts, around on time. And we didn't get all that much in this press conference, Jennifer.
Well, JB, we didn't get squat. We didn't get anything other than the charges levied. So in terms of the investigation and how they got to this probable cause conclusion leading to his arrest, we got zero. And, they want to maintain the integrity of this prosecution. I understand that they don't want this tried in the media. With the huge social media following and mainstream media following of this case, they're concerned about this. But keep in mind, the prosecution filed these motions to seal, and a judge, at least for the time being, has agreed that it's important that this affidavit and that all the documents and evidence in support of the affidavit concerning his prosecution be sealed. And until that judge makes a different decision, we're not going to see anything.
We have this comment coming in from Liv, and we're going to get to a lot of we're getting a ton of hashtag HJB and Jennifer comments and questions coming in. But let's just start with this one because Liv is right here. Hashtag HJB, I think we should respect it. They are doing it for a reason. And of course, that reason being to not compromise the legal process and it could be a lengthy legal process now. Also, too, we don't know the strength of the evidence. So let me ask you this question now, Jennifer. Considering the fact that this is we got basically a nothing burger on this as far as information to go by on this arrest. Does that give us any inkling whatsoever as to the strength of the evidence, that they have the strength of their case? I mean, you had Doug Carter opening up there with at what times felt a lot almost felt as much like a sermon than it did, a police press conference. It was a very interesting way. It was 10 minutes of opening up and really not talking all that much about the case, but talking about the community and the people who have tirelessly put in the work. He even went as far to thank the media, members of the media who have, worked tirelessly, covering this story. So as far as us getting to this point and not having any information put out, of course, we should respect it. The process is ongoing, but there's a lot of people scratching their heads right now as to why a press conference was called to begin with.
I think you make a great point. Look, if I were the prosecutor or we're on the side or we're part of this law enforcement team, and we had great physical evidence or DNA evidence supporting this arrest, I would think that nugget would be dropped. We don't necessarily know there was DNA. Remember, they kept that concealed from the public. But JB, announcing one nugget in terms of what they have, generally speaking, I don't understand how that would compromise an investigation.
There was obviously a strategy, Jennifer, that went into this beforehand. They had the entirety of the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to discuss what they would be able to discuss at the press conference. And I would imagine it had to have been a relatively short conversation because they're laying everything out there and then saying, nope, this is off the table, can't talk about this, can't talk about this, can't talk about this. So we get to the press conference and they're apologizing before they even make the announcement of the arrest. I just think that I've covered countless police press conferences in my time. Jennifer has watched a gajillion of them. I don't know if I've ever seen as high profile of a press conference with so much time beforehand. Sometimes press conferences will happen at the scene of a crime where, you'll see the crime scene tape get put up and then police will come out and, they're just walking away from maybe a particular, horrific crime scene. And they will look into the cameras and say, look, we can't say very much at this time. There's so much that we have to sort through here. Please, pardon us as we try to comb through this, and we will keep you updated as soon as humanly possible. That's something that's a little bit more common because they're just getting out of the crime. This is something that's been going on for 5+ years. They had the entirety of the weekend to prepare. Really, in large part, the Delphi community coming into this auditorium to learn what has led to this arrest. And the only thing that we get is Richard Allen's name, 50 years old, and facing 2 murder charges. Also, I should point out, though, at the end there, they did mention that he has pleaded not guilty and that there is a pre-trial hearing set up for January 13th. That's something to go off of as well. But how they got to this point with so many questions, endless amounts of questions, I'm sure the reporters in that room wanted to ask, it's pretty much 99.9% of it was off the table. We're gonna